Bob and Bob Show, Ronnie and Bob.
This is our new Bob. We got two more accomplices supposed to be here, but I don't know whether they'll make it or not. We're an hour late because we wanted to be, and everybody seems to be okay with it, but nobody showed up but us. Well, cream of the crop, you know.
Yeah.
Cream rises to the top. What's going on, Mr. Henson?
All sorts of things. About all I know is what I read in the newspaper, and it's fairly interesting.
Well, you know, that's the only way our president gets any news.
Yeah, that's what I heard. That's kind of odd.
We need to get rid of all them people supposed to be relaying information to him. We got the CIA, and we got the FBI, and we've got all them advisors, and we got them people that gives him out there lecture every morning, and people that writes his notes. Everyone ought to be fired because ain't nobody lets him know nothing.
Yeah, I heard he didn't get that lecture to his briefing till 11:30 in the morning, and that's just barely in time for him to get out and have a game of golf and do a little fundraising. But anyhow, that's you just segued into something. I heard today that the CIA. Have you heard where they're going to cease to do their false vaccinations? I
didn't know they were doing any false vaccinations.
There's our 5 o'clock at 6. Come on in, Bob.
Maybe a little bit after 6. You know,
for some people.
Better late than never.
If CW, whatever it is, can have 4 at 5, we can have 5 at 6.
WROLDDDD.
Right, yeah. How are you?
WOLDW.
Yeah.
Everybody okay?
I reckon.
Well, you may have heard this, Bob, where the CIA is going to quit doing their false vaccinations. Did you hear that?
Quit doing what?
Their false vaccinations. What they've been doing in some of these foreign countries, you know, these doctors have been getting assassinated or whatever that's giving these polio vaccinations and whatever. Well, and I heard this, and I'm pretty sure they're telling it for the truth because it was on a talk show. But anyhow,
this is a talk show. You can hear anything.
Yeah, you can hear anything. But they said that the CIA had been setting these false things up to get people to come in and bring their children in to be vaccinated, and somehow it would give them a lead to the people they were trying to keep a string on. And the bad guys seems to have figured it out, and that's why they've been assassinating the doctors and the nurses and stuff. So now the CIA comes out and says that I reckon what they were doing, they were falsifying the polio or whatever it was that they were supposed to be vaccinated against. They're falsifying that just to get the people to come in. And now they said they're going to quit doing it.
All right, now, were they not really vaccinating them for polio?
Well, they may have been, but the
they
polio...
were getting them there under false pretense.
Right, but my understanding is that they weren't having all these cases of polio that they say they were having. That
they just encouraging people.
Yeah, they was putting out the word, you know, hey, we got an epidemic down here, everybody come in.
Well, don't you know, on any government operation, it's always a crisis or an epidemic or a pandemic or something.
Well, you never know about it, though, unless you read it in the paper.
That's right.
Well, now, that's something, too. That's if our president gets his information from the newspaper.
Now, if he'd watch Wild Bob and Ronnie and Jethro and Jed, he'd know more about it, wouldn't he?
That seems to me like
never fail.
The leader of the free world would be getting his information somewhere besides the newspaper, because if that's what our world's turned on,
you know that. Well, I'm going to come back to that just a minute about them not knowing things or claiming they don't know it. But you realize that 1/3 of the money we give away in foreign aid goes to Muslim countries.
I don't doubt it.
1/3.
Yeah.
And we've got a situation now over in Iraq where we shed an awful lot of blood, spent an awful lot of money, but we did not stay there long enough to make sure that everything worked out like it should. Now, if we can leave troops in Europe 40 some years after the Second World War, to make sure that that place progresses. Then we should have left troops in Iraq, and we also need to leave 30 to 50,000 troops in Afghanistan to make sure that we have not been there in vain. Now, what happened when the new administration came in with Barack Obama, they were absolutely intent on devising some strategy to turn victory into defeat. And that's what they did in Iraq. They turned victory, won that war. We chased Al-Qaeda out. We had everything going for us. And then they figured out some way that they could turn a victory into defeat. And that's exactly what they're doing in Afghanistan also. They're going to tell them whatever gains and strides that we have made toward westernizing those people. And in some ways, I feel like you're humanizing them, make them human. They're going to find some way to turn that into defeat.
Well, it looks like it's pretty much happening.
Yeah.
And there's we've got things going on, and I guess you've heard about the little thing that's developing in Vietnam, off the coast of Vietnam, between China and Vietnam, over their oil.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah. That is, these little things like that can develop into major situations. I heard that they'd already lost a few lives in there. I'm not significant, but I guess any life is significant. But still,
the Vietnamese have more or less killed a lot of Chinese.
Well, that's what I'm hearing, that has happened. And that's not good. I mean, we're going to China, and I haven't read up on this or followed it up very much in the last little bit, but at one time, is China, they're legally allowed to drill in the Gulf of Mexico, aren't they?
Well, I would say, see, I don't know what we claim as our international waters. I think it's just a few miles off the coast, okay?
Yeah.
Now, we can't drill off the coast of Florida, but the Chicoms, the Chinese, in cooperation with the Cubans, are probably going to tap those untold wealth of oil there in the Gulf or in the Atlantic Ocean.
Well, we put that restriction on ourselves, though, didn't we?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we restricted ourselves.
We've tied our own hands. But see, it doesn't make any difference who burns the coal and uses it to produce the energy as long as it's not us. It doesn't make a difference who pollutes the air and pollutes the streams and all this sort of stuff as long as it's not us, you know.
But it still produces carbon dioxide.
Pardon?
It still produces the carbon dioxide. Of course, there's several other things in it, but yet we have the scrubbers in our coal plants that take out the majority of everything. What's coming out, most of it is invisible, and what you see would be on a cold morning where you see condensation or something to that extent.
Right.
And
we can make coal clean, and we can use our own energy. This was what I was alluding to when we give 1/3 of our foreign aid to Muslim countries. Most of them are located in oil-rich areas, okay, mineral-rich areas, but yet we still provide foreign aid to these countries, because they have such an archaic system of government that it does not, none of that wealth ever gets down to the people. I think maybe Saudi Arabia might do the best job of redistributing the oil wealth. I don't know, I'm not all that familiar with it. But, point I'm making, if we would develop our own energy, then the Muslims would not have the money to cause all this trouble they're causing around the world. They'd have to stay home and feed their families.
The money that they're getting from us, we're borrowing. We don't have the money to give them. We're borrowing that money.
Oh yeah,
to give them, to give out. Whenever you talk about the energy part, we can segue into another thing as far as energy is concerned. the technology for what we call clean, renewable energy obviously is not available. If it was, it would we would know about it. The government would be putting it out here. This is something that always concerned me, and I can't understand. It's another thing, but let me get back to this. If we're going to cease to use the standard fuels that we're using, like the oils, the coals, and whatever else, and to me, I see no way that we can totally get off of oil. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about the purpose when it's used for lubrication, in the place of in your engines, in your crankcases, and whatever. If there is something else that we can put in, now I know there's synthetic oils, but
until you're getting away from the racing, you done forgot about chicken grease.
Oh yeah, put that on the axles. But the thing about that, them wagon wheels didn't turn that fast and create that much heat. But and of course the metals are better now. But still yet, we're going to, unless somebody comes up with some extremely new thing,
unless we
that's
completely
affordable.
alter our lifestyle.
Right.
We go back to living in mud huts and simple little shacks without television, without electricity, without fertilizer for our crops, all those things, just a subsistence existence.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that we can replace petroleum, either natural gas or crude oil, which is made into a number of different products. There's no way in the world. In fact, by trying to make us do that now, our government has imposed an economic hardship on its own people that is not necessary. They are costing the American people more to live each day because of their policies than if they were their policies were opposite of what they have now. Is that not true? Aren't they bringing extreme, cruel pressure on the American people with their green energy policy?
The green energy part of it, I think it would be great if we could all do everything like if we had enough hydroelectric to do all of it or whatever, but it's not there. TVA, I believe, has got 59 dams, and I think about 29 or 39 of them or something like that produce electricity. But we're only talking about, I'm going to say, I believe it's about 7.8. I know it's less than 10% of our energy that we consume in the TVA area, the 6-state area. That is
from hydroelectric.
That is from hydroelectric. And whenever that water, you can only, the only way you can reuse it is when nature pulls it back in the air and it rains again.
Right,
That's
yeah.
the only way we can reuse it.
Right.
Until somebody comes up with perpetual motion, which everybody's worked on that, but nobody's ever come up with it. But the only thing that we can do is consume far less energy, and I don't foresee that happening. If you look out here on the road at how many vehicles there is, you look at the people who are leading us, our leaders that we elect. They tell us all this stuff, but you don't ever see them living by the same propaganda that they put out.
Well, you know, Barack Obama is only president when he wants to be president.
Well,
I'm changing the subject a little bit, but you take, a while ago you said something, why do they find out things in the newspaper and elsewhere?
Oh.
Now, he claimed he only found out about the VA crisis through news sources. When it come out that he was briefed and his entire administration was briefed very, very heavily on the looming problems of a waiting list and backlog in the Veterans Administration hospital and health services. And he knew it, his administration knew it, but he's claiming, no, I didn't know anything about it, I just found out about it, you know. And you know what his press secretary's name is, don't you?
Well, you got tangled up, Bob.
Yeah.
I don't pay enough attention. I know the guy that comes out and speaks, but
that's Baghdad Bob.
Baghdad Bob.
Yes, who that is. That's Baghdad Bob.
I don't pay much attention to him. Since the stories that the president told about the health care thing, and all this is proven, and he come out and admitted that he didn't wasn't truthful about it. After that, I began, well, I kind of didn't believe a whole lot of what I hear anyhow. But anymore, I've got to the point, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one, that anytime he has anything to say, I don't pay much attention to it. I know whatever he's going to do it by executive order. He's going to sidestep the Constitution and all these things, and that just leaves us out here as
paying the bills.
We're paying the bills, that's for sure. But we ain't even paying the bills. We can't earn enough. We can't earn enough to pay the bills.
We can't pay enough in to pay the bills. Did you know that what was it, 17 trillion now?
I think it is.
Did you know there's not that much currency in the world?
They ain't enough trees to make it either.
Yeah.
we're going to come down, in my opinion, and I really hate to see anything happen like what I think will happen. And
I heard an interesting observation the other day that they continue to let people come across the border, okay,
yeah,
without a whole lot of restrictions. They don't put as much firepower down there as they did on the Bundy Ranch. They have constantly turned known criminals who are here illegally back into the population for them to steal, rape, and commit crimes again.
Was that about 100,000 of those? Was there that many of them?
Now, the new slant I heard about that is that if there's a revolution, that the Democrats are counting on those people to fight on their side.
And be well armed by the government.
Yeah.
I can see where that I hadn't thought too much about it, but I've been informed, or this discussion came up between other people about this, and I could see where the government, let me stop in the middle. The government thinks far ahead of its citizens out here. They've got people that are strategists that sit and figure this thing out. And they're figuring out things 2 or 3 steps down the line. And this would be one. If you take, and I got this straight too, the American military, there's a lot of them that would refuse to fire on American citizens.
Well,
a lot of them.
It's supposed to be in the Constitution that they don't.
Well, that's why they're training these your local police forces.
Right.
And that's why they have Homeland Security with 32 billion rounds of ammunition.
Yeah. I've been talking around and trying. There's nobody being able to buy ammo. I'm talking about at a decent price anywhere. Powder's hard to get. Lead, primers. They said primers are just out there. You can't find the primers.
Well, they ought to realize that you cannot conquer the American people if your only fear is their ability to arm themselves. Now, they've got big guns. There ain't no doubt about it. They can put down any rebellion they want to if they've got the military behind them. But gasoline is available. You can make a lot of damage with them there Molotov cocktails.
Well,
you can. The right person here in the terrain that we have here could take a small handful of well-trained people and defeat an army.
The high tech, the thing right now, drones are a major thing that civilian population in this area has never had to deal with. A drone with infrared is a bad thing to deal with. If it's
you don't even know it's coming.
Well, it's infrared. It doesn't have to see you. All it has to get you is your signature, your heat signature. And
you don't know it's there.
You don't know it's there. And as far as shooting that thing or dealing with it, the civilian population just doesn't have what it takes to deal with a drone. I mean, you can't reach up there.
We would innovate some way.
Well,
I'm not worried.
That's so far out there and so far off.
What state is it that is issuing hunting license for drones?
I don't know.
I believe that's Colorado or Wyoming or somewhere.
I think it was Wyoming or Montana. They brought up a bill.
Yeah.
They didn't actually. Maybe it was just a local sheriff. I don't remember.
Yeah. But anyhow, we're getting off on all kinds of subjects. But if we get back to the energy part of it, if we're totally addicted to energy, there's no way around we can survive without our electricity. And if you think that we can, you need to read the book 1 Second After. And that'll tell you what life would be like without it.
I'm not afraid that I couldn't survive without it. But I am afraid that the people who can live like we would live won't be able to defend themselves and hang on to what they know how to do. The people out of the towns that can't make a living is going to come and take it.
They don't know how to try to grow tomato plants in the sidewalk.
Well, you can't. You think about it. If today all the electricity and all the water and all the roads just to quit working, I could get by, and you could too.
Oh, I can too.
We'd be inconvenienced.
We definitely would, and we'd do things the way we growed up doing them too.
Yeah.
But we could get by. But what would you do if you lived in downtown? If you lived in Manhattan and they quit bringing food?
Do you know how long it would take you to get hungry?
Well, just finding out it wasn't a coming, you'd start getting hungry.
There's a.
It'd be impossible to survive in the major cities.
Hordes of people in Chicago.
Any big
no
city.
Education, no nothing else. I mean, you let the lines of transportation break down.
Look what happened in New Orleans.
Right. I mean, those people sit there.
That was a warm climate, and it was people. They were 2/3 of the population had come up in such a way they could survive. But the ones that were right downtown didn't even have enough sense to get on top of the house. They just sat there and drowned him.
Well, and of course, you know there were so many things done wrong.
Yeah, and they, come and save me, come and save me. Yeah. Save yourself.
Yeah.
And not only that, they knew a week ahead of time that it was a-coming.
Well, you know, I tell you what I saw. They had, they showed these people, these 20-year-olds, 20-something years old, they had left New Orleans and there wasn't any way to get back in, and they went walking back down there. And they just decided it'd been 2 or 3 weeks and they still didn't have any transportation going, and they just decided to walk back down there. And they saw a few people moving out, and I don't mean to say this in the wrong way, but the only people they met walking were white people. And when they got downtown, they had these fat mamas sitting there on the corner and wanting to know when somebody's going to come do something. And they had some them there white bums that won't do nothing, wouldn't strike a leg to snake. They're down there fussing too. There wasn't nobody any get up trying to do anything. They was just sitting there waiting on somebody to come rescue them.
Well, there's...
Well, now I'm sitting here right now waiting for somebody to discover me.
If I'd offended somebody, it's your problem. I told the truth.
Well, this is true. If I often try to figure out or think, I look at the road and I see people, and I'll make a little joke about something, and I'll probably offend some ladies. I come up to an intersection the other day and I saw a lady sitting at the intersection in her car. And she was not talking on a cell phone.
Did you take a picture of it?
No, I wanted to. I wanted to get a picture of it. That was totally unusual. I was not talking on a cell phone.
I was coming out today and this afternoon, and up there where the road crosses from Hunter's Branch, goes across the road, goes over to College Hill, and I'm coming up the other way. Well, I'm coming up through there, and there was 3 cars sitting there waiting to get on over the road. And I'm coming up through there minding my own business. Well, whatever happened, there's a car come by, and these 2 in front pulled out, and they turned right, and nothing wrong with that. And I come running up there, and there's some old girl in the car come through last, and she didn't look. She just drove right on across the road.
Just followed the others.
I reckon. Yeah. And they didn't go across the road. They turned right. Well, she didn't even look. She just trotted right on across, and she wasn't on a cell phone, but she didn't look. It's just like I'm in the middle of the road, and it's my road. And I'll tell you another place you can get run over down here at Woodson's. There's the mall. You're coming out of there. Say you're coming out from the store and wanting to go over to the movie place or AutoZone somewhere. If you're coming across there and going to go across the road, you have to wait till everybody makes a left turn in front of you before you can go.
Yeah.
They'll run over you.
Yep.
And they ain't no left turn signal.
Yeah. I've learned to drive.
There it is, CIA vaccination cover program.
Is it?
They feel like you're supposed to have a signal light that shows you're going straight.
I reckon they do.
Now, fellas, we get off on a lot of different subjects, and we make a few jokes about it, but we're in a very serious situation. And, like what you're saying about we can survive, providing, now we can survive as far as food and water or whatever else, that type of thing, and shelter. Where we would run into trouble is where we have to defend ourselves against other people. And to make that decision would be a hard decision to make.
If it was me or him, it wouldn't be too hard a decision to make.
Well, I'll tell you,
what do you do if somebody shows up on your doorstep and got some hungry young'uns and you've got food? You ain't going to be able to get no more. You're going to share them.
I can take care of a few, But
that's right.
I can survive.
When do you say, look, I'm tired of feeding other people, the rest of it's mine?
Right.
I read a little article, I believe it's in the
Let me say something else first.
Go ahead.
One thing you need to do if you want to practice your survival skills is get you some propane down at Digger's.
Yeah, there you do.
And then you can run a refrigerator, you can cook, you can light with it. And you can even, just be proud you got it if you don't even use it. 562-5444 right in the middle of the road.
That's 5444.
5444?
Yeah.
Not 5444?
No.
Right in the middle of the road in Sawmill Holler, Digger Wilson.
That's Wilson's propane.
Now you were...
Propane is an amazing thing. And I've never figured out, or never researched on how they came up with propane, but propane is a byproduct of, or butane, well, wait a minute. Out of natural gas, you get butane, propane, and 2 or 3 other things out of it. Methane. Well,
I don't know what you get out of natural gas, but it's methane, ethane, propane, butane.
Something starts with an
pentane, hexane, heptane, octane, nonane, and decocane goes up through 10.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know what's in between there, but icocaine is 20 and hexacocaine is 60, and you're counting the carbons in the...
Well, it would take some major refining
now
to sort that out. But, we can get off on all kinds of subjects, like carbon dioxide. If people ever stop to think, Holston Gas, they pull this stuff out of the atmosphere, refine it, and put it in a bottle and sell it to us.
You're talking about CO2?
CO2.
Carbon dioxide?
Yeah, it's pulled out of the atmosphere, and we use it in welding and whatever else. It's an inert gas.
The trees grow much better the more carbon dioxide they have around.
Well, whatever happened to that hole in the ozone? Did they get that stopped up?
I believe they went up there and put a patch on it. I believe
that was the thing back whenever they wouldn't let us use any kind of fire extinguishers and had the halon in it, and you had to change you had to change all your refrigeration
you
system.
You couldn't let freon escape into the atmosphere.
And now we've got that problem solved, and we're going to have to worry about something else.
The real problems, maybe there are real problems, but looking at some of this stuff keeps us from seeing the real ones. If we go back to this VA thing, if the president says that he don't know nothing about this, of course, I don't believe it. Like you say, I'm sure that he's aware of this stuff. But the veterans should be taken care of. it
He's
bothers
like them
me.
3 monkeys, hear no, see no, and speak no evil.
I've seen some things that I can't. Well, let me back up and say this. It seems like the majority of our soldiers now are older. It seems like the most of them are. I see these boys, or men, soldiers shipping out, and boy, them guys got some miles on them. You know, the ones that I'm seeing are. I know there's young ones in there, but there's some of them.
Well, they don't need the way you fight wars. They don't need as much cannon fodder nowadays.
Well, we had a friend, a common, we all knew, and when this thing started in, boy, it all runs together. Not Afghanistan, but where we're at now. Pardon?
Ukraine or
no,
Iraq?
on by Iraq. When that thing started, they sent him out to for some desert training out in the west, and he and I were the same age, and he had years on him, and he had a few more years to retirement, and they was considering sending him, you know, and I don't care how whatever you are, you get enough years and miles on you, it tells on you.
Yeah, and another thing, the reason they don't like older people is they're smarter.
Yeah, that's right.
They're wiser. They say, well, sure, they tell me to go out there and get killed. That's for a good cause, but I think I'll just stay here and shoot behind this rock.
There you go. Right.
Let me say something about that global warming thing. You remember last week when they were talking about just the inevitable, that the southern ice cover is melting. The glaciers are disappearing. Well, right here is some more information about that. This is from Forbes magazine. It's an article today by, what is that guy's name? I know him.
So it has record.
James Taylor, and he's not the
record Antarctic ice.
Antarctic polar ice extent has set another new record, defying alarmist global warming claims, surpassing the greatest month of April ice extent in recorded history. The new record throws cold water on alarmist claims that the Antarctic ice cap has crossed the melting point of no return. Now, it goes on to say that similar things going on in the Arctic, but the rest of the story on the Arctic is if you melt it all, it ain't going to raise the ocean none.
No.
Because it's floating.
Right.
Okay, now, the most recent Antarctic ice sheet alarm began when a paper examining the partial glacier in West Antarctica that has long been considered prone to instability. The paper speculates that a collapse of this particular glacier is unavoidable, though it will not actually collapse for at least a couple centuries and possibly not until 2900 AD.
900 years from now, approximately.
Yeah. Notably, while the majority of Antarctica is getting colder and the southern hemisphere polar ice cap is expanding, West Antarctica is a smaller portion of the continent that is experiencing modest warming. Taking advantage of this outlier trend is in a smaller portion of the continent. The media has a long history of highlighting modest warming in West Antarctica or a small retraction of West Antarctic ice, sea ice, and falsely claiming this is caused by global warming and is representative of Antarctica as a whole. Now you'll never see this followed up in the major news reporting agencies.
No, they sell a lot of newspapers trying to push global warming.
Well, people never stop to think about the Arctic floating, but if you come right down to it, that's been proven beyond a doubt because they take submarines.
Yeah.
They take a submarine and go underneath it.
Well, I've had people argue me that if you put ice in a glass and fill it up with water, when the ice melts, it'll run over.
Well, if you'll just put one ice cube in a glass of water and watch it, it will float.
Yeah.
But there's very, very little of it sticking above the water.
Here's the thing about you can put it in there, and you can put an ice cube in there, and you can fill it up with water till you can't get it.
I see what you're saying.
Until it can't hold another drop, and when that ice cube melts, it won't run over.
It will not change due to the fact that the ice cube is not solid water.
Well, the ice or water is one of the few things in the world that expands when it gets
freezes,
cold.
Right? And
well, water in its natural state cannot be compressed, it can only expand.
No, that's not true, because everything in the world used to be compressed into something about that big before it didn't exist.
We have no means of compressing water here on...
Oh, no, but it used to all be in one little ball about that big.
I thought it was one atom.
Well, before it was that, it was nothing. There it is.
Well, what you're saying is...
I'd like to see somebody compress some water, though.
Well, you can put it under pressure, but you cannot change the volume of it. It takes up X much distance or space, and this is why.
You get some in your automobile cylinder and see if you can.
It has the least volume at 4 degrees centigrade.
4 degrees, okay.
It can only expand water in its natural state. When it gets warmer, it turns into steam, or the molecules get further apart. Same thing's true with when it gets colder. When it expands. When it gets colder, the water molecules expand and get further apart.
Well, if ice didn't float, there wouldn't be any life. You ever thought about that?
No, I hadn't given that very much thought.
Well, you imagine what would happen if the lakes froze from the bottom up.
That's right.
So you froze the lake over this year, and it sunk, and and it sunk, and then next winter it freezes and sinks again. Pretty soon it never melts.
That's right.
And you wouldn't have any life on Earth if water did not expand when it froze.
Right. True.
Interesting. Yeah. The
that's a physics lesson or natural science lesson.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's amazing what you can learn in the 3rd grade.
I reckon it is, especially if you stay long enough.
Yeah, if you stay long enough to 3rd grade. There's all sorts of whatever, but what about on the local front? The money that's being spent for what was on the news or on the talk last night about 4 coaches.
Yeah.
And the way they described it, these 4 coaches, none of the 4 have a teaching degree. One's trying or in the process. But anyhow, we're spending $200,000 between these 4 people.
That's more than the coal severance tax we ain't getting, ain't it?
Well, I'm kind of practical on sports. I think since sports is not a curricular activity, if sports has nothing to do as far as education. It's more of the socialization.
I think you ought to be self-supporting or cease to exist.
I think you're absolutely right. That's my opinion. I think any sport that cannot operate on its own, and these sports wouldn't.
Well, any kind of entertainment.
Right. Entertainment should support itself and let those. Here's what irks me. We're going to raise the county commission. Our county commissioners.
Yeah, they're laying the groundwork.
They're going to raise our taxes, and this is on property. Property taxes. Now, there's people out here that own a little piece of property, and I'm talking about people who are disabled, on fixed incomes, widows, you name it. Everybody out there is going to be paying for this $200,000 for these coaches. Now, I've got nothing wrong with coaches. That's fine and dandy. If they want to hire them coaches and let them run that school, that athletic system, fine.
When I heard about that, I thought, well, maybe this is because they didn't have anybody to teach shop. They didn't have anybody to teach auto mechanics or welding or something like that. And I thought maybe these are people, working people that has that skill but don't have a degree. Is that what it's all about? And then I find out it's for entertainment.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
I know that if you're gonna teach one of those technical skills, like if I had a cousin that taught welding up here,
right?
But he didn't have a college degree, but he started working there as an assistant and had to go to school some to get some sort of a certification to do that. And they were in the process of getting. He couldn't do it now. He was grandfathered when they changed the rules, and he taught it, and he knew his stuff. He was good at what he taught.
Right.
Well, I thought maybe that's what they're making exceptions for. You can't get people that have. There are people they've got a machinist that's teaching in the place. I assume that guy made a whole lot more money before he retired as a machinist than he's making up here. But you don't go get an experienced machinist to come in and teach for what they could pay him. I thought maybe they were making allowances for that. That ain't what it is.
No, that's not what it is. It's the whole thing
Football.
is entertainment. And if it can't stand on its own, let me back up and say this. Let's say football, basketball, any one of these sports. If they need money, let them players go down here and put them up a roadblock to get donations, or let them go out and hire themselves out to mow yards, or whatever to promote, or let them go out and beg whoever wants to give them money. Now, if they come to a place of business and they ask for a donation, and you make that donation, that's fine and dandy. Yeah, I mean, you're doing that out of your pocket. I'm not going to take it out of Widow Jane's pocket over here that's having to make a decision as to what she's going to have for supper.
Well, old bachelor Ronnie would like to keep a little too.
Well, it's something that we need to look at, and these are questions that we need some answers to. And there's a lot of other questions. How, if we go back about a year or two ago, we had the director of schools, we can call him the superintendent of schools, stand up in the courthouse and recommend that the director of the finance department have, I believe it was either a $15,000 or $16,000 increase in his salary.
Well, he's going to pay for it out of his.
That is correct. He stated that. Now,
it wasn't his money he's using; it was our money.
Okay, but let's look at what happened before he walked in there and stood up and made this suggestion. Do you think that the finance director knew that he was going to stand up there?
Why, heavens no.
Heavens no. But you know, that finance director, I was there that night. And you know, he sat there as solemn-faced. If somebody come in here and say, hey, I want to give this guy $15,000 increase in his salary, I believe I'd have got a little excited.
Especially if I was already making $120,000 a year, it may not make much difference.
Well, but here's the point I'm trying to make. These people who we have elected to make not to make our decisions, but to represent us, they know this stuff before it ever come in down there. The Beard knows about it. Half of the county commission knows about it.
They talk it over before they ever go to the workshop and talk it over.
They talk it over before it ever shows up. And it comes up that night, they vote it, and wham, bam, bang.
Well, let me tell you why it's that way. Right now, we're getting ready to elect a new county commission. You find anybody that's paying enough attention to pin one of them down and get some information out of them.
Well, them
people's going to go elect them. They don't care. They don't look ahead.
Yeah, well, who of them put up the biggest sign? Did you see the signs out there at Denver Mart for school board?
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. School board. That's a good thing. You stop and think about school board. Now, that school board, for the director of schools or school superintendent to stand up down there, the school board, I think, had to know about that also. Well, every member of it, I believe.
I will not vote for anybody or I'll encourage anybody else to vote against anybody that voted for solar panels on the roofs of the schools. Now we need somebody with more education or more research skills than that running the school system.
Well, that thing, that should have been criminal. The way that was done, it should have been criminal for them to go ahead and enter into a contract, and they want none of them. And they will. Has anybody ever said who signed that contract before it ever went before the county commission?
Well, how foolish is it? If it was the best idea we ever had, how foolish is it to put it on top of a building, put it in a field somewhere?
I agree. You don't want nothing on your roof.
I mean, you think that's a great thing because it gets you up where the sunshine is. Well, you get about 30 feet closer to 93 million miles away. That's absolute stupidity.
The solar panel thing, solar energy, if it was feasible, the TVA wouldn't be paying double for what amperage you produce, double what they pay.
No, they'd quit running the lake up and down and just leave it for tourism and put a bunch of solar panels around the edge.
But these people that are running for school board, if you go back to it, the school system in this county, and I'm sure it stands about the same in most of them, I'm going to say it's far in excess or somewhat in excess of 50% of our revenue.
More than that.
Well, okay. Well, we're looking at about $100 million in our
I'm going to tell you, the biggest business in Campbell County is Campbell County government, and the biggest part of Campbell County government is the school system.
Yeah, right. And this is why whenever we look at school board members, they're the ones that are handling the money. They're really handling more of the money, dispersing it, of course. And I know the majority of it probably goes to teachers. But there was
how many people in this county? How many people in this county make more than $225 a day plus insurance? And how many make less than 200?
Well, let me ask you a question too.
Me too. And every one of them people that's paying taxes are buying license plates or paying sales tax. Some of that is going to pay school teachers $225 a day. Figures out that they're making about $40-something an hour. I ain't got nothing against paying school teachers, but the people that are paying them are making a whole lot less.
Well, it kind of, I could give you another scenario about it, but anyhow, in my opinion, if we continue at the rate we're going, not only in this county, but education, if you stop and look at what's owed in school debt, I'm talking about college down, the education system, if we continue the way we're going, is another thing like the housing bubble, whatever. Education can bankrupt this country if we continue at the rate we're going. Well, it's going to get up to the level of defense.
Well, you take people in education are supposed to be the brain trust of the county, really. And they're not even smart enough to figure out how they could get by without a new central office.
Yeah.
With all the communications and computers and networking and everything else, they've got to have a central office with a central meeting room.
Fellas, we're sitting here in a building, and you and your dad or somebody, you put this building together. We're sitting right here broadcasting probably to any part in the world.
Throughout the world.
Yeah, throughout the world, in ships at sea or wherever. We're sending this
out of a pole barn.
Out of a pole barn.
Yeah.
And you can't tell me that they couldn't do the same thing, just like in our meetings down there, in our county commission. I'll guarantee you, well, I would pretty well assume that everybody that's listening to us can hear us. We're not mumbling. We're not whatever. We might pick our nose every now and then.
We're not like our finance director.
That's what I'm saying.
What he's saying.
And that school board thing, my opinion of it was, whenever they started this thing, you take a look at our schools. We've got some of the climate control, whatever. They could pick one school every meeting and say, we're going to have our meeting at this school, so everybody can see the school. Every school board member and whatever can go in there.
Oh no, that's too simple.
Yeah, tell you what you can do.
They gave away and tore down 3 or 4 schools,
right,
and then built a central office. That gymnasium they tore down up there at La Follette High School.
Lord, that was a bomb shelter.
That was the most physically sound structure, a public building in this county, and they tore it down and put a tin shack up.
They gave Stony Fork away.
Yeah, and they done that. They took them there concrete bleachers and made rubble out of them and replaced them after they got donations with plastic bleachers.
That will burn and give off toxic gas if they burn.
You try to burn a concrete cell. You know anything about concrete, it won't burn
I'll
good.
tell you what. Well, anyhow, we're being led.
I just now figured out why they done that, too. They didn't want to use concrete to build them.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah, there's some people politically incorrect selling cement.
Yeah, I'd agree. They're not too well thought of. As a matter of fact, I know somebody that didn't get a Christmas card this year, I don't believe.
I know, too.
But anyhow, back to the serious part of this thing. We're electing these people. We're putting them on a throne, setting them higher than we are. And I could use I've got a little book here, my dirty words in it. But I'll be, whatever, if I'm going to be following somebody that don't know more about it than I do. And if they don't know more than I do, why should I follow them?
I tell you what got me was when they built that there doghouse out there, and they wanted to put a standing seam roof on it, but they just had $50,000, so they had to settle for shingles.
You're kidding. Is that thing got shingles on it?
Yeah. $50,000.
No.
Adrian Beard said, may he rest in peace, I would love to put a standing seam roof on this place, but we've only got $50,000. We're going to have to put
It wouldn't have cost $50,000.
Yeah, it would, the way they do it.
I know a building that's X much bigger than that it costs less, I believe, $12,000. Whatever. And that thing out there don't have no whatever. It's just a straight roof.
But I'm telling you what was. I don't know how much they spent, but that was the statement that was made.
Well, this is where, whenever we go to, first of all, one thing we ask is what kind of degree does these people have? And I know a lot of
don't
people
mean too much. Common sense. One of the best one of the best civil and mechanical engineers I know of don't have a degree.
Is that the one that completed the 3rd grade?
Yeah, drove a truck for a living.
Yeah, knows how to weld and
but he knows
certified
how to make
electrician
a living.
or whatever and so forth. Yeah.
You know, we was talking about roofs and that building they tore down up there. You remember right there, Greeting Center up there at Jellicoe had a stainless steel roof on it.
Yeah.
They tore it down and built a
Was that
roof.
stainless steel or copper?
No,
stainless steel.
I thought it was copper.
It was stainless steel.
Well, it would have been there.
That's the one they just replaced.
The one they replaced 4 or 5 years ago and put shingles back.
Well, fellers, like I say, here's what we need to do. We need to back up and change the rules. What we've allowed to go on here, we've allowed the state to mandate rules, and the counties went along with it. We're going to have to change the rules to where that people are held accountable in some manner with all what we've, and I see the word expert, educated, all this that we've got. Why can we not come up with somebody that can figure out a way that we can hold politicians accountable? Now, I'm not talking about 4 years down the road when you revote them in, but I'm talking about holding them accountable for their decisions.
You think they're going to vote to hold themselves accountable?
There ain't no way. I kind of hate to see whatever it's going to take, but we might be better off, just like this county, and I've often said this about the city, and I ran for city dog catcher one time.
Your heart wasn't in it.
My heart wasn't in it. I was so tickled to death when I lost that thing. But anyhow, I believe, seems to me like if I'd have been elected, the first thing I'd have done was made a motion that we fold up that charter and send it back and say, to heck with it. We're no longer a city. We're done for. And
let me ask a question. Won't you do our tomato juice thing, Bob?
Well, if you got a problem with some old rotten tomato juice that you drink and you need to go to the hospital, you need to call 562-9370. That's Vital Care Medical Transport. They are tender loving care. They're independently owned, privately owned. If they don't please you, then you don't have to use them. And if you call them, you'll be well pleased with their services. I noticed today, up and down the road, the county uses the biggest ambulance that they have. Vital Care is running up and down the road in the smallest one that it can use.
And got more equipment on it. Got more equipment on it.
Got more equipment on it, and also it operates so much cheaper, not only on the gasoline, but the tires and everything else that wears. But you call Vital Care, it will not cost the county or anybody any tax money for them to come and carry you to the hospital or transfer you between one medical facility to another one. And so you call them, you can call 911 and tell them you want Vital Care, and they will dispatch their unit to you. So be sure and call Vital Care Medical Transport. It's 562-9370.
5 minutes, fellers. And I'm tired of talking loud.
A feller told me, he was a member of the county commission or whatever, told me one time, he said, when we have a public hearing, he said the sole purpose is to let people come in and let off steam. He said the decisions are already made. He said we let them come in, run their mouth, say whatever they want to, but we've already decided what we're going to do. And that kind of stuck with me.
There's one of them fellas told me one time that you could say anything you wanted to, they'd forget it for the next election.
Well, and I saw things go on. I saw where they amend the minutes of meetings. They take out, if something is said that shouldn't have been said, that's inappropriate or whatever, the next meeting they'll amend the minutes and take out whatever was said.
Yeah.
And you can't find it then.
Yeah.
Now, what's the point?
Well, you got so many issues coming up. You have a school board that more or less is completely out of hand and basically runs the county commission. The county commission does not run the school board. The school board runs the county commission. All right, because it also has enough members on the county commission that are have their allegiance to the school board, that it makes it double trouble. Then you have a sheriff's department. You got a good sheriff, but he's got so many sheriffs running around here, you don't even know what they're doing. You know, I've never seen so many people in my life. Here in Campbell County, you've got one law enforcement officer for about every 3,000 people. You know, in most
you got 3,000 officers for people here.
Right. In most counties, you have about one officer per 300,000 people, and but here, you know, if you can afford to hire police officers that can just sit around and watch for people not to have a seatbelt on, then you have too many police officers.
Seatbelts, yeah. Anyhow, we can get all kinds of discussions going. Gentlemen, I appreciate y'all inviting me in today.
What do you mean you got invited?
Yeah, I did.
Well, it must have slipped through the cracks or something.
I let off a lot of steam is what I've done, and I don't know that it'll mean anything. But running the dozer out there working by myself, I have time to think.
Yeah, well, you know, one of the things I really think, you know, I don't know whether we can reverse what's happening or not.
I don't believe we can.
Maybe just let them go ahead and run, just like these little lemurs up in the Arctic.
Lemmings?
Lemmings.
Lemmings?
Yeah.
Lemmings, yeah. They just follow one another and run all over the cliff and kill themselves. Well, maybe we ought to let them self-destruct.
Well, we keep paying their bills. They get their tail in the crack, and we bail them out with more money.
What's going to happen when it gets to the point that we can no longer afford these things?
My opinion, it's been that way a while.
Well, we've been borrowing.
You have to understand that other than you get out in the county, the product is made mainly a renter's city. Everybody lives in a rental house, except when you get down maybe Weirwood. I don't know whether that's in Jacksboro or whether that's in La Valley.
It's about that line. That's about the line. That's about where the line is.
Right, yeah. And, you know, you've got people who rent. You know, they don't realize that when taxes go up, the landlord's going to raise their rent, you know, that they're really the ones that's paying the tax bill, but as long as they can get by, that's all that matters.
Somewhere along the line, gentlemen, if we have a discussion, I'd like to have a good discussion on socialism and see how close to becoming a socialist country we actually are.
Well, I'd like to say that we live in a blessed county because we've got one of the few areas where through this entire recession, property values have either held their own or grown.
Grown up, yeah, went up.
We've gone through 2 reappraisals, and my stuff's worth more than it was 8 years ago.
Well, you misspoke that. The appraisal went up, not the value of the property.
You mean I can't get as much out of it as it says I can?
Try selling it for what it's appraised at, and you'll see what.
There was a time when they appraised it, you knew that you could get a whole lot more than the appraised value.
Right.
Now you know you can't get the appraised value.
Right. You count on at least 20% less than appraised value.
You got to find a buyer before you can sell.
You can get it with your tax bill. I mean, they get it on your tax bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You fellas done?
Yeah, I think I've about 7
Thank you,
now.
folks. We appreciate you watching. We'll be on Saturday at
It's 4 o'clock.
4
4 o'clock.
WLAF 1450 or Backyard Doug TV, and if you're listening on the radio, you ought to be able to hear us this week.
We'll have our 3 o'clock show at 4 o'clock on Saturday.
Yeah, we had our 4 o'clock show at, our 5 o'clock show at 6 o'clock here, so we'll have it right Saturday.
See ya.
TTFN.